Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Lahu ni'matu wa lahu al-fadlu, wa lahu al-thana'u al-hasan, was-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidina wa Habibina wa Maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. I ask Allah, the Exalted, to grant us all the sincerest of intentions, the ability to understand and to do good, and the reward in the hereafter. Thereafter, we were reviewing together some rules about how to protect one's Iman, how to protect one's Islam. And if a person has invalidated their Islam by saying, doing or believing in something kufr, whether knowingly, knowing it is kufr, or without them knowing it is kufr, but they committed kufr, whether by saying belief or action, how do you repent of that? We mentioned that a person needs to know the kufr to be kufr, not want the kufr for themselves, and to say the shahadatain, the two testifications of faith, whether in Arabic, English, Urdu, Punjabi, or another language, as long as they give a similar or equivalent meaning to Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, i.e., I testify that nothing deserves to be worshipped except for Allah, and I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam. Thereafter, we moved on to talk about the precautional testification of faith, at-tashahhud al-ihtiyati, the testification that is done out of precaution, ihtiyat. Okay? And we said there are two types of precautional testifications. We covered the first one, and I'll just briefly recap on that before moving on to looking at the second type of precautional testification of faith. I mentioned that sometimes a person, they do not have any actual doubt that they have committed something kufr in the past, but for one reason or another, they find themselves in a situation that they can't relax themselves without taking a testification of faith out of precaution. And that is such as an individual to whom shaitan whispers, you've committed kufr. Okay? Now, even though the case might be very, 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 very clear, and not long ago, a person was asking a judgment about if I said la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, for example. But shaitan whispers to them that you consider this statement to say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah as a kufr statement, to make dhikr. Now, I don't believe anybody here who's learned just even a small bit of knowledge would think that the judgment is not absolutely clear that yes, if somebody considered a statement of dhikr to be kufr, this is without doubt kufr. But if shaitan whispers to us, when you said that dhikr, you referred to that dhikr, for example, as a kufr statement. You judged it to be kufr. Immediately, if it was, I hope, somebody who's using the knowledge that they have, they would reject that. They'd say, why would I say that the statement of dhikr is kufr? I wouldn't do that. Shaitan, though, gets some people convinced through whispering and getting them into a panicked out state, something that actually is very clear, that maybe you've committed kufr, maybe you've committed kufr, maybe you've committed kufr. Sometimes by saying to them, like in this particular case, when you said that statement, you judged it to be a kufr statement, and that is kufr. So you now need to take a testification of it. Because the person is so panicked out, at that moment, the only way they can feel that they can relax themselves is to say a precaution testification of faith. For example, if I considered that dhikr to be kufr, then I repent of that. Ordinarily, a person should say, I would never do that. Why, as a believer, as a Muslim, why would I ever deem a statement of dhikr to be kufr? If somebody was to give me £1 billion to do that, I wouldn't do it. So why would I deem a statement of dhikr to be kufr? I wouldn't do that. So in reality, there is no testification of faith that was required there. However, because the person was so panicked out, shaitan was stressing them and giving them the whisper, what if you did? What if you did? Shaitan might say to a person, what if you insulted God? What if you insulted him? What if you insulted the Prophet? What if you belied Islam? What if you did? What if? What? And it goes like that again and again. Now, who remembers from the previous series, what's the way that we should be dealing with that? Ignoring it. Good. Exactly that. Ignore it. Don't engage in a dialogue. Shaitan says, what if you did? The person, no, I didn't. What if you did? No, I didn't. What if you, I wouldn't do it. What if you, I wouldn't do it. What? This is ignoring. This is like what I say. If somebody says to another person, I'm ignoring you, I'm ignoring you, I'm ignoring you, I'm ignoring. This is not ignoring. How is that ignoring? It's like you're having a conversation with the person. He's saying one thing and you're responding back to him. But some people, that's how it is. Shaitan says, what if it? What if you did? What if you doubted? What if you doubted? What if? A case that is as clear as daylight. And to that person, I said, look, would you ever do this? No. What if somebody gave you £1 million? I wouldn't do it for the whole world. That's what they responded back to me with. They're very clear that they wouldn't do that. It's like, what's the issue then? Just because shaitan said, what if you did? You wouldn't do it. Except, look, it might have been a slip of the tongue. Well, that's excused. Okay? It might be something that you were misexpressing and confused, and there's lots of thoughts going in and out of your mind, and during that you ended up thinking something. Come on, but you're not going to say a statement of dhikr is kufr. You wouldn't do that. You're not going to say it's okay to insult Allah. You're not going to say it's okay to belie the religion or mock the religion. You're not going to do that. But if shaitan whispers to you, okay, you need to just ignore him. He does not want what's good for you. At least he wants to waste your time. He wants you to be in this panicked out state so that your day and night, your life revolves around these whispers. Rather than getting on with your dunya and thinking about other more beneficial things for your akhirah, This is how some people end up in this state, in a way that is not actually beneficial. But shaitan doesn't want to let go. What if you did? What if you did? What if you did? What if you insulted Allah? What if you insulted the Prophet? That's how shaitan will go with you. Ultimately, just to keep you locked and engaged in that whispering, at the very least to waste your time. He also likes to see us in pain, stressed and anxious and worried and so on. So that's another reason why he would persist like that. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, just stop. Don't engage it. Don't engage it. The classical one is when the person is engaging, he responds back, I wouldn't do that, but what if you did? And then he might give a response back. And then shaitan says, but even your response is not clear. Then what? My response is not clear? How is it not clear? And he's in another conversation now. And suddenly he might be taking you from one conversation to a second conversation to a third conversation until the person's mind is like, they say, frazzled. It's like all over. Shaitan goes, that's it, just say it, that's it now. Say the testification of faith, and that will relax you. But really, what he's wanting you to do is to be in this panicked out state. Just to play games with you. It's not really that he wants you to say the testification of faith for you to be benefited. Anyway, some people, when they're in that situation, especially if they've been in it a lot of times prior to that, it then becomes like an illness, which requires treatment over a period of time, reviewing the religious lessons and implementing this issue again and again of learning how to ignore and to stop and not to engage in a conversation with one's qareen, the shaitan that accompanies all of us. So we said that if a person reflects upon a particular scenario because of waswas, or it might just be a sudden thought that comes to them, might not be from shaitan. In either case, the person knows in their heart with certainty, I would not do such a thing. I would not insult Allah. I would not insult the Prophet ﷺ, but they're finding it difficult to relax. What does the person do in that scenario? A person can say a precautional testification of faith in the meaning that they say hypothetically, according to the intellectual possibility. I know I didn't, but if hypothetically this kufr occurred from me, then I say this testification of faith to repent from it. Okay? Later on, when they become relaxed, usually they would say, no, I never said that kufr thing in the first place. In which case, this testification of faith was what for them? A dhikr. Just a dhikr. Because that's what precautional testification of faith in essence means. That if a kufr occurred, then this would be to repent of that kufr and to re-embrace Islam. And if it did not occur, then this would be what? A dhikr. Just a statement of dhikr. If later on, somehow they get to the conclusion that actually no, the kufr did occur from them, then that's it. They've already repented of it. They knew the kufr to be kufr. They did not want the kufr for themselves. And they said the testification of faith, that had that kufr occurred from me, I'm repenting from that by saying these statements to re-embrace Islam. And if it did not occur from me, then this would be what? These statements? Dhikr. A statement of dhikr. Is that clear? That, in essence, is the precautional testification of faith. The second We talked about it in more detail last week. But now the second type of precautional testification of faith is when there is a real doubt. Not just a hypothetical doubt, okay? A real doubt. Hypothetical, just again to remind you, is it intellectually possible that, and religiously possible, for me, 3 months, 2 weeks, 4 hours, 23 minutes and 44 seconds ago, that I committed something kufr and then forgot about it? It's intellectually possible. The mind says, yeah, that could have happened. A person might commit kufr, not realize at the time, forget about it, and now we're X period down the line. It's intellectually possible. I am not a prophet. I am not protected from kufr. I am not among the awliya. I am not a person who would be protected from kufr. So it's religiously even possible. And if there isn't anything in your mind or in the religion that says it's impossible at that particular time, you committed kufr. So it's what? An intellectual possibility, a hypothetical possibility. I am certain I didn't. You understand? I am certain I didn't. But if in that scenario that it suddenly came to me, but what if you did? What if you did? I can't remember what I said now, 3 months X time period ago. Okay, what if you did? And I can't find myself relaxing. I can say a precaution testification of faith. Okay? This is different to the following scenario, where a person recalls something specific that they know occurred. For example, they say X months ago, 3 months ago, when I was arguing with that Christian and he insulted Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when I got angry, I said some words. And it comes to his heart, what if I insulted Prophet Isa at the time? So when he insulted Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did I say something bad about Jesus, Isa? Did I insult him in retaliation? He has a doubt. If he knows that he insulted Jesus, Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, then this is kufr. There's no issue of precaution there. He needs to repent of that kufr. How? Knowing the kufr to be kufr, which he does. Every Muslim knows that to insult a prophet is kufr. He knows the kufr as kufr. The Muslim does not want kufr for themselves, because Islam and kufr cannot reside, Iman and kufr cannot reside at the same time in the same heart. So he doesn't want the kufr. He knows the kufr to be kufr. What do they do immediately? They say a testification of faith. And it's not that they say, I don't want kufr for myself, okay, I know the kufr to be kufr. No, there's no break, there's no delay. Delaying it would mean as though they are saying, I accept for myself to remain on kufr for another bit longer. And then I will repent from it. That in its own right is kufr. Accepting kufr for yourself or accepting kufr for somebody else, al-rida bil kufr kufr. That's what the scholars since centuries ago said. From the time of the Salaf to the Khalaf. Accepting kufr, being content and accepting of kufr for oneself or for somebody else is kufr. So a person wouldn't be delaying in that scenario. They say, I insulted Isa back then. How might this come about? They're sitting in a lesson like this, and we're going through the rules, and we say, if anybody insults Allah or any one of the prophets or any of the angels, this is kufr. The person then says, X period of time ago, when I was in that argument with that individual, did I insult Isa? Did I insult Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wassalam? Or no, he's doubting. Or he says, I did it. He immediately says a testification of faith. Clear? If he's doubting, now what? Now what does he do? He says a precautional testification of faith. But here it's not just about a theoretical doubt, hypothetical scenario. He has an actual doubt in his heart. Sometimes a person can be certain, okay, and they say, but intellectually this is possible. It could have occurred. Something like this could have occurred in the past. Okay? And a person might get a whisper and they say, no, that never occurred for me. I'm certain. There's no doubt. Okay? So they get the whisper and they say, there's no doubt. But then there might be a scenario where the whispers continue and it becomes a real doubt. And it might be that actually from the first moment that they think about it, there is a real doubt. Do you follow that case? I'll repeat it again. You got one scenario where you say this is an intellectual possibility. But you are certain that this did not occur from me. I believe it didn't occur from me. Is it an intellectual possibility that it could have occurred? Yeah, it's an intellectual possibility. Is it a religious possibility? Yeah. There's nothing in the religion that says this person cannot have committed kufr in the past. But I'm certain I didn't. I'm certain I didn't insult Allah. I'm certain I didn't insult the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What might happen? The whispering continues from shaitan. So much so that it might become a real doubt. Not now just to relax themselves. That's a different case. They were getting whisperings. They said a precaution, testification, faith. What? To relax themselves. We've moved on from that case now. We're looking at another case. Building upon what we said and introducing some new examples. Okay? One of them is what? The whispering is so strong it continues in a way that they have a real doubt. They say, actually, I think there's a real possibility I did do that. Okay? Or it might not be because shaitan is whispering and is repeating again and again until it becomes a real doubt. It might be that from the first point that you think about it, or the second moment, or the third moment that you thought about that case, what if I did? It becomes a real doubt. I might have, they say, insulted a prophet of Allah. Okay, in a way that I've not repented from it. What do they need to do? Without any further delay, they say a testification of faith. With which intention? If I did insult Prophet Isa, then this testification of faith is to repent from that. And if I did not, this would be what? A dhikr for me. A statement of dhikr. So they say it without any delay. Later on, okay, they think more about it and they say, no, I'm certain I didn't. Okay, there is without doubt I didn't do it. Then what? That statement for them was what? Dhikr. If it comes to them, actually, yeah, I think there is a possibility. I did. Well, I've said the precaution. Third scenario, no, I did. How? He remembers, or somebody else who was there says to them, you know that certain time you did this. He says, I've already repented from it. Or he comes across a recording that he watches or listens to, in which he hears himself insulting Prophet Isa. Now for him, he's certain, I did it. I did insult Prophet Isa back then. Now what? He's covered. Because that precaution testification of faith for him then was what? Was like an actual testification of faith to repent from kufr and to re-embrace Islam. You following that? Who wants to repeat? Go ahead.
Both of yours. If the person wasn't sure and they had doubt, they take a precautionary testification of faith. And then if they have a real doubt and then it sounds like they're still taking.
Yeah, I know. Look at it again. Look at the difference. A person, they are looking at this, as I said, as an intellectual possibility. It's not a real doubt. It's not an actual doubt. Okay? They're just looking at it, intellectually. Could it be this way and could it be that way? Yeah. I'll give you an example. Look, right now, I know I'm awake and I'm speaking to you. Okay? And somebody says, what if you were, I don't know, on some medicines and you're drugged out and it is something, I know, whatever explanation somebody gives. And you just think you're alert. For example, I'm certain I'm awake now and looking at you and hearing your question. Without any doubt. But somebody says, look, well, is it intellectually possible? Whatever, I don't know. They say whatever they say. That the mind says it could be like this. Even though it's not in reality, but the mind says it could be like that. It's hypothetical. The other example, in fact, that I gave when we said, somebody said there are 3 lions in that kitchen right now. Now, I can see into that kitchen in part, for example, I know the lie of the land, I know where we are, the sounds, all of these different things. I'm relying upon them what? I can't obviously see 3 walls, but there's different things that I'm relying upon. Some things that I can see in part, some of the signs that I've got. And I say, look, I'm certain there are no lions in that kitchen. But is it an intellectual possibility? Yeah. What in your mind is there to say that somebody couldn't have brought 3 lions, put them down, and somehow said, be quiet, and the lion said, okay, we'll stay quiet here. For example, you follow that? That scenario is you're certain that they are not there. You're certain they are not there. But it's an intellectual possibility. That scenario is different to certain other cases where, like this example that I gave, when the person, I was speaking about Prophet Isa and he said something against our Prophet. I remember that and I was angry. And then whilst angry, he starts to think, what if I did?
But he can't remember.
He can't remember. But here, you see, it depends now. When the thought might come to him at the beginning, is no, I'm certain I wouldn't do it. There's no doubt. Okay? It might start like that. It's not an actual doubt. Right? He says, I'm certain. It's just a intellectual possibility. Or it's a religious possibility. Can one of us have committed kufr in the past and forgot about it? Yeah, well, we're not prophets. We're not protected from kufr. There's nothing in the religion to say that it can't have happened in a certain way from that point of view. And your mind says, yeah, this could happen and it might not happen. But as far as I'm concerned, I believe I didn't. I'm certain about that. Okay? But then it might be that he thinks more about it. At moment number 2, he gets a real doubt. Actually, there is a real possibility I did when I was angry. Soon as he gets a real doubt that this actually might have occurred from me, not just a mental consideration, not just an intellectual consideration, not just a theoretical consideration, but an actual possibility of it having occurred, then what? Then he says a precautionary testification of faith.
That's the same result, even if you
Yes, because that's what they're both precautionary testifications of faith.
I just don't know why is it differentiated?
That's another question.
Yeah.
But I'll answer that for you now. We'll come back to it again further as well. Okay. I've answered it actually a bit already, but we'll go through it a bit more now. Because it's been asked. Okay, look. Do you know, if I am certain that I am upon Iman, and I get this as a whisper from shaitan, okay? Whisper continues, and I'm saying, look, I wouldn't insult Allah, but I'm finding it hard to relax myself. Then what do? I say a precaution testification of faith. But look what happened first. Whilst that whisper was there, and I was looking at that theoretical consideration, I might spend 1 minute, 5 minutes, 5 hours on it. Okay? Religiously, I've not fallen short in that. Because I was certain I'm upon Iman. Look at this other scenario now. If a person has a real doubt, not just a theoretical consideration, a real doubt that kufr occurred from me, and I say, let me just leave it. It's then as though I'm saying, actually, I might be upon kufr. A real consideration, not just some theoretical, talk, right? An intellectual a real possibility. I might be upon kufr right now. And then if I say, well, okay, let me just stay upon that. That in its own right is kufr. That in its own right is kufr. So this is why you see for the second type of precaution testification of faith, you don't delay. As soon as it's a real doubt, an actual doubt, you immediately say the testification of faith. With which understanding that if that kufr occurred from me, then this would be to re-embrace Islam. And if it didn't, then it would be a dhikr. Whether that doubt is weak or strong. Whether that doubt is weak or strong. Okay? Where do some people struggle with this issue? Usually it's either current or past waswas issues. They get into a scenario because what's at stake is not a little. Potentially dying and going to hellfire forever is not a light matter. That's huge. So you might understandably in your own right be anxious about it, rightly so, and it might be because of whispers from shaitan. In both scenarios, you might well be anxious about it. As we said, although just panicking about it is not just the way to resolve the issue. You need to think, why am I in a scenario where I'm thinking I might have committed kufr? Like, what does that say about me? What's my level of learning? How am I reviewing? I need to start looking at other things. I need to start looking into my heart. What's the state in my heart? Okay, so that's another issue. But the person, as I said, when they've got that actual and real doubt, okay, shaitan, as I said, might have built them up to it. But once that real doubt has occurred, they immediately say the testification of faith without any further delay. Is that clear? No. So I'll repeat again. You've got one precautional testification of faith, okay, in which a person does not have any real doubt. Okay? It's just a theoretical consideration. For that one, whether you say the testification of faith straight away, or you say it 5 minutes later, 5 hours later. That's one case. The other scenario is where there is a real doubt that has occurred from you. At what point that real doubt occurs, this will depend on the person's situation. It might occur straight away. It might not occur straight away. It might be you're thinking about it. It might occur because the waswas continues until it becomes a real doubt. There's different possibilities there. But as soon as it occurs, as a believer, would one of us be accepting for themselves to remain on a state of kufr? No. So what do? They immediately say a precautional testification of faith. If they got to a conclusion, it's not just a real doubt, actually I did do that, immediately they say the testification of faith. Okay. Up to there we're clear. Some people though, as I was saying, what's the issue that gets them?
When they come to that conclusion, then that's not precautionary anymore.
No, exactly. That's the real testification. That's, remember, the case that we started with. Because in this section, what are we looking at? Repenting from kufr. Case number one was what? You know you've committed kufr. Okay? that is in the past and that you've not repented from. What do you need to do there? Immediately say a testification of faith. Clear? Okay. Case number 2 has 2A and 2B. Okay? It's got 2A and 2B. 2A, if you like, is precaution testification of faith when you're looking at a theoretical, hypothetical, mumkinun akli. Okay? An intellectual possibility. Something might have occurred. Even though you're certain it didn't. The third case is what? Where you got a real doubt, 2B. Okay? And sometimes, you see, understanding, you might go between these different cases. It might be a whisper, okay, that turns into a real doubt. Or a real doubt that turns into, actually, I did do this. Doesn't make a difference. As long as you've got the understanding of the rule, you will say, hey, testification of faith. Later on, it might be, no, that was just a whisper from shaitan. There was no real doubt. It's done. No, there was a real doubt. It's done. No, you actually committed kufr. It's done. Then it came back. No, it's just a whisper. It's done. No, it was a real doubt. I don't need to do anything. One testification of faith covers all those scenarios. 5 minutes later, oh no, you actually did say it. Khalas, I've said it now once. It's done. Then it was that precaution testification of faith that I took was what? An actual testification of faith. Then 5 minutes later, shaitan might come to me and say, no, you didn't do that. You didn't do it. And now you've taken a testification of faith. Then okay, then it was dhikr. Then it comes back to you and says, no, it was a real doubt. So it's done. No, it was an actual, it's done. One testification of faith covers all those scenarios. It's done. Is that clear? Right. So what's the thing you see that gets some people is that you often use it from, waswas from shaitan. How do I know whether this is a real doubt or it's just an intellectual possibility? Okay? Or an actual occurrence? I have iman in my heart. That's my starting point. Okay? I have iman in my heart. That is the starting point. And I know, religiously, it's knowledge. Iman and kufr cannot reside in the same heart at the same time. Yes, iman can become strong or weak, but the essence, the basic iman and kufr, they cannot coexist in the same heart. So what's my starting point? Iman. That's the rule. That's it. It's black and white. That's the starting point. Okay. The whisper is what, for example, you insulted Allah. I know I would never do that. If somebody gave me £1 billion, I would not do it. If somebody says you lose your job, I will not do it. If somebody says I'm going to punch you, I'm going to slap you, I would not do it. Guess what's speaking there? What's speaking there from the heart and the tongue? The iman. Your iman is speaking up. I would never insult Allah. I would never insult a prophet of Allah. I would never insult an angel. I would never belie the religion. I would never say Islam is wrong. Or I would never say, I accept 99.9% of Islam, but there's a 0.1 that I reject. I would never do that. Yes, in my practicing of Islam, I might make more than one mistake. I might commit more than one sin. But as for accepting Islam, 100%, everything that is in Islam, I believe is correct with certainty. Without any doubt. Because I, as a believer, believe whatever the Prophet ﷺ came with, that's the correct thing and the better thing. Whether I find it easy or difficult. That's the correct thing and the 100%, not 99.9. Okay? So you're certain. I'm not willing to do it for money. I'm not willing. Why would I just do it? Sitting at home at night, I'll just insult Allah, belie the religion. say that something in Islam is wrong. Would I ever do that? I would never do that. For money, I would never do it. So it's clear. The issue is clear. However, shaitan, as I said, sometimes whispers, and the whisper continues and persists, and sometimes it leads to a particular result, in which case the person finds it hard to relax themselves. And they end up finding that maybe I did do it, and it becomes a real doubt. And maybe they still at the waswas state, and they know where this is heading, and I can't relax myself. They say that precaution testification of faith. It might end up like that. But as I was saying, how do you differentiate? One of the things is, I've got Iman in my heart. Okay? And kufr and Iman cannot reside in the same heart. If somebody says to me, I'll give you £1 million to insult God, would I do it? I'd never do it. For $1 billion, I wouldn't do it. Somebody says, I'm going to slap you if you don't. I'm still not going to do it. I'm not going to insult Allah. Why? As I was saying, because the Iman in the heart is speaking up. Okay? I don't accept kufr. So it's not something that I would just do casually. Okay? This is a clear-cut case. Some people, though, when they're in that panic state, they don't look at things the way that they ought to. So their case is separate. And sometimes the only way they can find themselves relaxing themselves is saying that first type of precautional testification of faith. Some of them, the whisper goes so much, it becomes a real doubt. Actually, what if I really did do it? And they can't take it, and they get a real doubt that really this might have occurred. Then they say the precaution testification with, which is the second type that we mentioned. These examples that I'm giving you, it can be helpful. And if a person says, back then, because usually shaitan will be referring to something historical when he's giving you a back then, might be 5 minutes ago, an hour ago. And you can't clearly crisp remember. Okay? And he'll play on that. Either because it's a real doubt now, or it's just whispering. What if you did? What if you insulted God? What if you insulted God? To make you panicked out. If you were to say, look, I would not do this for £1 million. Why would I do it there? Except, look at this case. Except, I might have said something as what is slip of the tongue. But what have we all learned? That a slip of the tongue, the religion excuses. You wanted to say something else, but something else came out. That's not kufr in the first place. I might have said something absent-mindedly. Okay? Without thinking about it. One of the brothers, just I mentioned a case. Some people might be singing a song that contains kufr in it. Something they learned in the past a long time ago. All of a sudden, it comes to their mind, maybe from shaitan, however it comes, and all of a sudden they're saying the words on their tongue. At the instant at which they're saying the words, the meaning is not registering. It's just like sounds they are making. It's not kufr. It's not kufr. This is like a person who says words that they think have some other non-kufr meaning. It's not kufr. We've learned that case. Okay? So either they are having a slip of the tongue, or they are absent-minded, or they had a misexpression. But outside of these, would I insult Allah? No, I wouldn't do it. Would I belie the religion? No, I wouldn't do it. Would I reject any part of Islam? I would never do it. That's it. Yeah, I know, but I know. I mean, usually we don't talk about in this, am I going to think that somebody threatened to kill me? That's not usually practically going to come up, is it? Right? And usually it's not in the cases of interpreting an ayah of the Quran. The most common scenario when people are getting these, waswas, and there is still that, if you like, theoretical possibility. But what if it was a slip of the tongue? What if you did say it? I know I wouldn't say it just like this, except what? Okay, it might have been a slip of the tongue. Boy, that's not actually something that I'm accountable for. I might have had a misexpression. I might have said something absent-mindedly. Again, but it's not kufr. That's why I just mentioned those two. Otherwise, you might be quoting quoting the kufr of somebody else. Okay? You might be threatened with being killed or the like. You might have a mistaken ta'wil. There are different cases that we talked about in previous lessons. Is that clear up to here, everybody? Let's have a short break, okay, for 90 seconds, so 2 minutes. Just close your eyes, stretch your legs, and the usual. More. May Allah grant us all the sincerest of intentions. So, we said we're reviewing together the rule about how to repent from kufr. Kufr, whether it is a kufr saying, a kufr belief, or a kufr action. Whether the kufr itself was as a result of belying the religion, whether it was likening Allah to the creation, or denying one of the attributes of Allah. Whatever the kufr was, okay, to repent of it is a must, immediately, without any delay. If you know you committed kufr, then you say the testification of faith to relieve yourself from it, to re-embrace Islam in the scenario that you were a Muslim before and now you're re-embracing Islam. If you were originally a kafir, then it would be to embrace Islam. Okay, this is clear. Thereafter, we said there are some situations in which a person has doubt. Okay? Some cases are of a real doubt, an actual doubt. For those ones, we said you need to say the precautional testification of faith immediately without any delay. There are some other cases that you don't have an actual real doubt. It's just a theoretical consideration, hypothetical consideration. You are certain that it did not occur, but there is an intellectual possibility. You can't say it's not an intellectual possibility. We, okay, and all of our attributes, we are the creation, every creature, and all of their attributes are intellectual possibilities. That's the starting point for all of us. It could be this way, it could be another way. For those scenarios where it's just an intellectual possibility, and I am certain that, for example, that kufr thing did not occur, then I can just leave it, that's it. I can go about my business and just completely ignore it. And I might say a testification of faith to relax myself, with the understanding, if that hypothetically ever did occur, then khalas, I've dealt with it now. Clear? طيب. That's where we got to. Let's just look at this issue a bit more, looking at some other examples. The precaution testification of faith when there is a real doubt that kufr occurred. There are two main cases here. The first case is when an individual utters a statement that has a kufr and a non-kufr meaning. Okay? A kufr and a non-kufr meaning. Or even they thought that in the language, as far as they are concerned, maybe in the actual language it doesn't. That's not really the issue here. They thought, they believed that in the language, this statement has a kufr and a non-kufr meaning. That is the statement that they said. So look at this now. This is an actual occurrence. They said that statement. Right? It's not just hypothetically, what if 1 week ago I said this statement? No. They actually said this statement. That they are certain about. A statement that can have a kufr and a non-kufr meaning. Okay? They then end up having an actual doubt. When I said that statement, with which intention did I say it? Did I say that statement intending the kufr meaning or intending the non-kufr meaning? They can't remember. Okay? Here, they've got a real doubt. Okay? They've got a real doubt. Such a person, they need to immediately, without any delay, say a testification of faith. That testification of faith is called what? A precautional testification of faith. It is said with the understanding that if I did intend the kufr meaning at that point at which I said that statement, then I relieve myself from that. That is, I reject the kufr, and this is to re-embrace Islam. And if I didn't intend the kufr meaning, then this for me would be what? Dhikr. Okay. There might be another scenario related to that. You say a statement that's got a kufr and a non-kufr meaning, and you are 100% certain you intended the non-kufr meaning. Then what? Well, that's it. I didn't intend the kufr meaning, and my intention was the non-kufr meaning. It stops there, it's end. Okay? Shaitan whispers to you, what if, what? There's no what if. I wouldn't do it. Not for £1 million, not for £1 billion. I wouldn't do it. I'm an Iman. I wouldn't insult Allah. And imagine a statement that has a meaning that insults Allah and a meaning that does not insult Allah. Somebody says, regardless of what it means in the language, but let's just say somebody saw, they said, such a thing is from Allah. Okay? Like they said, bread is from Allah. Allah created the bread. He provided it as rizq for us. So they said, bread is from Allah. Clear? Yeah. Bread is from Allah. Allah created bread. It's sustenance, rizq that Allah provides. He's Ar-Razzaq, isn't it? So that issue is clear. I know my belief. Suddenly the thought comes, well, if you say from God, from can sometimes mean like physically from. And sometimes from can mean a part of. This is from Him as though it's a part of Him, separated from Him. Without even going to now linguistically what it means or not. Let's just leave that aside. But there is that possibility. Somebody thinks it could, in the language it could mean this, i.e. it is created and provided for me by my Creator. Okay? Sustenance from my Creator. And it might mean a part of my Creator. Or physically, from a place and location where God resides, and from there it came to me. For example, he thinks in the language it can have these meanings. Look at this. Let's take a scenario. He gets a thought. Suddenly comes to his mind. What if you intended by this statement that this is a part of God? I am 100% certain if that happened to me, no, I would not intend that. I am certain Allah is free of parts. Allah is not a body. That which is a body is limited, it's weak. Allah is not weak. Allah is not limited. Allah is not in one place. Allah is not in every place. Allah is not in one direction. Allah is not in all directions. He created time, place, and directions. And He existed, and there were no time, place, and directions. And after creating them, He still exists without change. I know that. I'm certain about it. Shaitan can whisper that to me 10,000 times over. I'm certain. I would not believe in such a ill creed, yani to claim that Allah has a part, for example. So I'm certain. The whispering continues. Okay? And for me, yes, a hypothetical doubt, but I'm not saying a precaution testification because I know it's Shaitan trying to waste my time. So I leave it. It continues until maybe the person has a real doubt. At which point, when they say this actually might have occurred from me, they immediately say what? A precaution testification of faith to repent of that scenario that if I intended by my statement, bread is from God, that bread is a part of God, I'm repenting from that. Okay? Later on, he gets relaxed and says, no, I would never have said that. So then what? It was dhikr. What I've said is a dhikr. It stopped. I don't need to go on with it now. Sometimes it might happen, you say, oh, it's a dhikr, you're relaxed. Shaitan says, no, but what if you really did? Khalas. Then what I said already has covered me. That precaution testification of faith covered me. Then you calm down again. Yeah, oh no, actually no, it was dhikr, I'm calm. Suddenly, Shaitan says, what if you did say that bread is a part of God? Suddenly you're worked up again. Maybe you're getting a real doubt. What if I did? A real doubt. Then what? I'm covered. And then what? It might be that you say, I actually did say it with that intention. Then still what? I'm covered. That one testification of faith covered all those scenarios. Regardless of now whether you're thinking it's dhikr, actual, real doubt, doesn't make a difference. One testification of faith has covered all those scenarios. I don't need to continue a dialogue with Shaitan. What if, and not, and this. I don't need to do any of that. I've said it's done now. Stop. Clear? So the first case is when an individual utters a statement that has a kufr and a non-kufr meaning. Or they thought that in the language this statement has a kufr and a non-kufr meaning. But they cannot remember if at the instant at which they said this particular statement, whether they intended the kufr or the non-kufr meaning. Thus they have what? An actual doubt. They say maybe it was like this, maybe it was like that. Okay, there's a real doubt. Related to that is what? No, they know this statement can have two meanings, but I know which meaning I intended. Then guess what? It's the hypothetical scenario then. Intellectual possibility. Or I actually intended the kufr meaning. Then what? I need to take, as they say, a precaution testification of it for real. An actual one, not a precautional one. Any questions up to there about what's been said? That's one case. The second case is if an individual is of an individual who cannot remember whether or not a particular kufr, such as verbally insulting a prophet or prostrating to an idol, was committed by them in the past or not. In the past, did I prostrate to an idol or not? They are thinking about this. Did I insult Allah? Did I insult the Prophet? If they have a real doubt, what do? Precaution testification. Clear? If they say that I actually did it, then what? Then they say a testification of faith. There's no precautional issue there. In both cases, whether the doubt is strong or weak, as long as it is a real doubt, this individual needs to immediately say the testifications of faith as a precaution. If a person actively delays saying the testifications of faith, i.e. they accept for themselves to potentially remain upon kufr, then this is kufr in itself. Just as we said. If you've got a real doubt, you don't delay. Clear? So one case is you said a statement but you can't remember with which meaning you said it. Okay? And you got a real doubt. Real doubt. Sometimes, as I said, shaitan might try to make you think you got a real doubt, but I know I would never say it in the meaning that carries the meaning of insulting Allah or insulting a prophet. I'm certain about that. So, khalas, it's not a real doubt. But let's say it's a real doubt. Then what? Precaution, testification of faith. If you actually did it, then a testification of faith. It's very easy. Two important points just to conclude for today's lesson then for now. Take note, there is a difference between all what we've talked about and the scenario where somebody says, to insult Allah, is it kufr or is it not kufr? Is it Islam or not Islam? Maybe they say this is Islam, to insult Allah. You know what? Let me say a testification of faith out of precaution. This will not benefit them. This will not benefit them. Why? Because in their heart they are saying, maybe to insult Allah is kufr, maybe it's not. Whilst they've got that in their heart, saying the testification of faith is not going to help them. Okay? That's not going to help them. The cases that we talked about, you need to know the kufr to be kufr. Okay? You need to know the kufr to be kufr. Somebody insults Allah, testification of faith. Somebody says, I said a statement that can have the meaning of insulting Allah and the meaning of not insulting Allah. Okay? But I'm certain I intended the meaning that does not insult Allah. No doubt. Shaitan whispers, I get a bit panicked out and I'm finding it difficult to relax. What do? Precaution, testification of faith when there is no real doubt. Okay? Or, same scenario, I'm thinking about that statement as a kufr, it has a meaning that insults Allah and a meaning that does not entail insulting Allah. And I'm not sure which meaning did I intend. Okay? I have a real doubt. What do? Precaution, testification of faith. That's clear. This individual, what's he saying? To insult Allah, maybe it is kufr, maybe it is not kufr. You following that? He's saying to insult Allah, maybe this is kufr, maybe it is not kufr. That, whatever testification he utters now, he or she, it's not going to benefit them. Okay? Similarly, I'll take other examples. Somebody says, to say that most of Islam is correct, but some of Islam is incorrect. Maybe this is kufr. Maybe it is kufr. You know what? Let me see a testification of faith. It's not going to benefit them. Why? Because what do they have in their heart? They've got in their heart that it is potentially okay to believe, i.e. for it to be not kufr. Potentially okay to believe that some of Islam is wrong or incorrect. And that's not something that a Muslim believes. Are we clear on that? This might need reviewing more than once. You need to review it more than once. I had a very rough night and a rough day, and I'm struggling to concentrate. Maybe you might have sensed that. But and I've taught it many times before. I've reviewed it many times before. So I'm finding that. It's the end of the day, and I'm finding the strain. So this is knowledge. You need to review it more than once. Okay? Take it more than once. If you've got a recording, listen to it more than once. Okay? This is how it will become clearer and clearer. Some things, I've just repeated them again and again in this session. And I'm just sensing, just looking around. Earlier on, there were some looks that were like, I'm not sure if I'm getting this. Some looks are still a bit like that, but okay, we'll go through it. There's only so many times that I can review it because the lesson's almost over now. But some people I sense that it's become clearer and clearer. Okay, so listen to the recordings what you've made so that you get that further review. Totally, I was tired. I said there's two things. One, I said, so there's a difference between these two cases, where a person knows the judgment of something being kufr, and the case in which they do not know it. Second one, inshallah, if I remember for next week, I will share with you, but it's gone from my mind right now. Anyways, any questions up to there? We've got another 3 or so minutes before the official end time. طيب, let's leave it at that now then. Let's say لا إله إلا الله ونصلي على النبي لا إله إلا الله